All right. Good afternoon, good morning, good day, greetings, wherever you're located. Thank you for joining us today. I see many familiar names of current clients, friends in the industry, and just others looking to gather as much information as possible in this new transforming world. I'm Heather Seasholtz, Director of TMG Meeting and Event Management, and I'm hoping you will walk away with some new ideas from our experience as we move into virtual events. Part of our new initiative and part of the seriousness that we're taking at TMG in our digital transformation that we just recently hired Derrick Johnson, who is certified as a digital event strategist and is the director of TMG Event Strategy and Development. I'm going to go ahead and let the team introduce themselves, who will be speaking from their experiences today. So Joe, why don't you kick us off?
Thanks, Heather. Hi, everyone. I'm Joe Sapp. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Talley Management Group. I also serve as the Executive Director for one of our clients, the International Society for Extracellular Vesicles. So I'll share a little bit about their experience as we just started the process of transforming our in-person event this May into a virtual conference.
Danielle Bar here. I work with Heather in our TMG meeting and event management services, where we focus on standalone associations or corporate clients who are seeking to provide event services outside of their own companies. We handle everything from board retreats to large conferences, and I currently work with a great group of clients: Hemostasis and Thrombosis Research Society, the World Congress of Bioethics, Primary Care Collaborative, and the Foundation for Women and Girls with Blood Disorders.
Thank you. Cheryl?
Hi, everyone. I'm Cheryl Gallagher. I am the Director of Operations and Meetings for the American Headache Society. We have several meetings a year, 2 large live ones, and then we do some regional courses. We are now just transferring into this virtual world and hoping that everything all works out.
Absolutely. Steph?
Hi, I'm Steph. I'm a meeting manager here at Talley for 2 different clients. I work with Joe on ISIF, the International Society for Extracellular Vesicles, and I'm also a meeting manager for the Federation of Analytical Chemistry and Spectroscopy Societies. I've been with Talley for a total of about 5 years. I've worked on many meetings ranging in different sizes. Like Joe touched on, we are going virtual with our ISIF meeting this July, so I'll be speaking to that in a little bit.
And Derrick.
Hello, everyone. I am Derrick Johnson, the new Director of Meeting Strategy and Development for Talley Management Group. It's an honor to be here, be a part of the team. My role is all around helping our current and future partners in developing your event strategy, sustainable event strategy for today, for a sustainable future tomorrow. So it's an honor to be a part of this group, and we have a lot of information to share.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, team. So Joe, before we even just dive into what to do and how to do it, let's talk about the decision-making process for the boards. You oversee an international association whose meeting was supposed to be in May. When did you start having conversations about going virtual?
Yeah, it was, it kind of came on quickly. Our meeting was in late May in Philadelphia. It's a meeting that typically brings a significant contingent from Europe. We just had a meeting in Japan the prior year, and we have got a lot of Chinese attendees as well. So once the virus started to kind of hit the headlines and the impact to China, the travel restrictions that came up from China, and then also Europe, in early February, that's when it started to get a little bit more serious for us in terms of what we were going to do. And the board was focused on how do we deliver content, how do we still bring people together. That was the major focus. Sure, there was talk about what's the financial impact, how is this going to look if we held the meeting, if we canceled the meeting, and that was always part of the discussion. But the key driver of the discussions was connecting our people, delivery of content. But once the travel ban to Europe hit, that's when we knew it just wasn't feasible. We continued some discussions about a potential US only meeting, maybe it's an East Coast only meeting, but once that happened, once the forces of the government restrictions kind of hit, that's when we knew it was time to take a different approach to the meeting.
So then how did you educate your stakeholders about the opportunities that existed with going virtual or maintaining the live event?
Yeah, we actually reached out to them. We developed a survey. We developed a tool to talk directly with our stakeholders, both our attendees, but also our members who may not have registered yet, to get an understanding of what they were comfortable with. This shifted from can we do it? Are we able to actually have people travel? Is the hotel going to be open? Is the government going to allow us to do it? Versus, do people feel safe doing this? We have a mix of scientists, but we also have some frontline MDs that were attending the meeting, and just understanding if they were comfortable with it. So we directly asked them, what would you like to see? Would you be comfortable with a virtual meeting? Would you rather we look at pushing this into the fall, even if that means uncertainty? And there was a mixed bag of responses, but it gave us enough insight into what they valued, what mattered most to them, and that gave the board all they needed to move it forward.
Great, awesome. Danielle, so your client is also an international association. When did you start having your conversations for a meeting that was supposed to be in June?
Our conversations really started what feels like a decade ago now. We started very early on, just casually talking about it on our planning calls in January. And then in February, just like Joe said, it really became a standing action item on all of our agendas. Each week we talked about it and monitored it. And really, as part of a medical school of a major institute, they really had to be tuned in quickly to it, because the medical school is also tied to a training hospital, and that's where a lot of our meeting space was taking place at too. So even though the university as a whole was making statements kind of broad in general, we were hearing different messaging from the School of Medicine. So we really started to monitor what the school was putting out, what the PA local state government was saying, and also the CDC. We kind of had to have all websites up at all periods of time, and just it was a lot of knowledge flowing in and out as we closely monitored the situation. And then it hit on March 10th when we received a notification from the School of Medicine that all travel was banned. They were prohibiting anyone from off campus, on campus. They were requiring the cancellation of any outside meetings, which was our meeting. And then they used the messaging that it was effective as of March 10th and indefinite. So that was our key terminology that we had to swiftly change course and go to a virtual conference.
While you had these conversations, was it important for them to maintain the same dates, or did you explore new options?
There was a lot of back and forth, especially early on as we were kind of sitting waiting. Our hands were tied. Do we still move forward with the live meeting? Do we start pivoting to the virtual meeting? And we had a lot of what if conversations. What if we did this? What if we did that? We talked about shifting the dates, but in the regular world outside of virtual, June was always the best for academia. So they decided to stick with their 3-day conference with a 1-day pre-conference and not move it. We even talked about just doing 1 full day of content, but we didn't want to lose anybody. So they decided to keep it limited to no more than 3 hours of live content a day, and then pre-recording all of our 10 different tracks of concurrent sessions, which could be anywhere up to 700 presentations pre-recorded, including posters. So we stuck to the dates, and we're pushing forward with the middle of June.
Fantastic. And Cheryl, American Headache Society, you do several yearly events, from annual meeting to workshop to symposium. I know the biggest one right now impacted by coronavirus, COVID-19, is your annual meeting. So tell us how you've started working through that process, what tools you're using for working through your annual program.
Yeah, so to begin, our decision was made probably back in March after a large national organization decided to postpone or actually cancel their meeting, for which a lot of our leadership would attend. Once that happened, we knew we needed to make a decision, and our leadership, our executive committee got together and started having conversations on how we could pull something off virtually. We do have a virtual platform that we upload content after our annual meetings and after our fall meeting for our attendees and non-members to, or not members and non-members to look at on a regular basis, and it lives there all the time. So we needed to decide if we wanted to use that platform or if we wanted to create something new. So we started looking at our vendors and how we could do that and making the decisions. A task force was formed as a subcommittee of our annual scientific planning committee to figure out what content from the meeting we could easily translate to virtual. Once that was decided, things just started falling into place. We figured out our vendor, we looked at our content. We've got some new content because of the COVID-19 pandemic that is being presented and how it affects people with headache and migraine. So it's been a swift move, but I think we're on a good track, and our leadership has an overwhelming desire to keep it simple. It's our first time moving into this virtual platform, and we don't want to bite off more than we can chew. So we're trying to keep it as simple as possible, not make it overwhelming. Our meeting is normally 3 days with pre-conferences. So we're cutting up some of the content and offering it virtually, and we're doing pre-recorded. We may do live Q&A. That seems to be important to our leadership. So we're going to try that out at least with one session, but most of it's going to be pre-recorded. We have a lot of abstracts that are going to be presented, virtual platforms or virtual posters.
Are you doing, is it accredited? Are you offering CME credits?
AHS is self-accredited, so we will be offering CME credit. It's unfortunate that attendees will not be receiving the amount of credit they would get if we were having a live meeting. So they're going to get a portion of it. We're trying to decide what we want to do, if we're going to have posters credited, because there's a whole other review system that has to happen for that. And we are, we have a lot of posters. So they will be getting some credit, just not all of what they would have received if they were live in person.
Gotcha. Steph, I know you work on the same client as Joe, and while he discussed the decision-making process, how did you engage with your existing partners to come up with the right tools as you went into a virtual annual program?
Yeah, so going into it, we knew we couldn't use, Zoom or GoToMeeting. We have about 1,000 attendees. So we knew we needed a program that was going to be sustainable. At the time, we were working with our AV company on some on-site tasks and just getting all of that moving. We were also working with Cadmium CD. Some of you might be familiar with them. They're an abstract exhibitor speaker management site. They also host our app. So we were looking at the options with both. Ultimately, we decided to go with Cadmium for streaming live content. They already house all of our speakers and our abstracts. They're coming up with some new software for live streaming and making the live changes to their functionalities. They also have the ability to record and upload presentations, which Cheryl was actually touching on earlier. Everything is in one place, so that's great for all of your attendees. They have one place they can go to see everything, whether that's live stream or on demand. The prices are very reasonable. Like I said, they're constantly improving their systems to better virtual meetings. They know that it's such a demand right now. So it's been great to work with the sales contacts there and our project managers. They understand our needs, and as each day goes on, it gets a little bit easier to work on these systems. A couple of other systems that we used before that we're implementing for our virtual meeting are just SurveyMonkey and Woohoo, just getting those simple forms out just to keep us organized. So we're using them for our moderators. They'll typically judge our posters and oral presentations at an in-person meeting by paper form. So this year it'll be nice because we'll give our moderators some extra time to get into the app, and they can send us the scoring for the poster and oral presentation awards. We also sent out a survey to all of our attendees to ask if they need a partial refund, a full refund, if they'd like to make a donation. That way it just kept it organized for us. We had over 500 people registered as of early March, so we needed a way to keep all of that information in one place and to not get multiple emails, of course. And we use YM, Your Membership, for our registration and our website. So we have had to update our website multiple times just with FAQs. We've linked to our WUFU account so that it's easy for our attendees to find where they can ask for their refund. And then we did create a new registration platform for just our virtual meeting to make it easy for people to register right away.
So Derrick, as a digital event strategist, we're listening to our decision-making process for several of our clients. What have you helped walk other clients through, or what have you experienced in the decision-making as you've discussed virtual events or digital space with others?
Yeah, definitely. So within this environment, and I've been kind of taking a tab of the chat menu also, a lot of it is reactive right now. People are reacting to a need fulfilled by their meetings being canceled. So what I've been having conversations with leaders around is the ultimate direction in which their organization would like to drive their digital events as they relate to the overall mission and vision of their association. Because digital events is not going away. It's not just going to be something that we use now. We are seeing that it's going to be a long-term thing. So as planners and leaders are looking to implement the digital strategies today to fulfill the voids of their canceled meetings, we also need to look at ultimately the directions in which they would like their organizations to go in the future. And this event, the first event, is going to be kind of that step in that direction. So as we look at their digital events moving forward, it's not looking at a face-to-face experience and trying to apply it to the digital world. It's looking at the applications of the digital environment and what can be accomplished in that space around the objectives of whatever meeting or event that you're trying to orchestrate.
Great points all around for sure. So to the meeting managers, before transitioning to virtual events, you are already selling exhibits and sponsorships for your in-person meetings, which were supposed to occur in May and June respectively. Danielle, I'll start with you. Have you seen an impact so far with your sponsors moving to a virtual program?
This was a big fear of the planning committee. What are we going to do? What happens if we lose sponsorship? What happens if we lose revenue? So we were extremely conservative and budgeted for our entire meeting from now a virtual perspective, putting together all of our expenses and taking really our revenue for sponsorship and exhibitors as low as we could take it. So we really underestimated way more than 50% of our revenue just to be conservative. But out of 26 sponsors and exhibitors for a large international conference, we only had one exhibitor back out. And it was unfortunate that they had to back out just their exhibit booth, which was to be a tabletop exhibit, because of their own internal budget cuts. So we got the real sense from them that if it was their choice, they would still participate, but it's coming from their major institute that they have to save money. So only one so far out of 26. And we're hoping to attract more. We reworked our packages, relaunched our website, and added additional visibility through product showcases, videos, virtual handouts, and even a scavenger hunt. We weren't planning to do one previously, but we felt like it was a value add to our sponsors and exhibitors to get the attendees engaged even more, since they won't be face-to-face at their booth or tabletop.
Absolutely. Cheryl, how are you engaging your sponsors and exhibitors?
Well, our leadership is having conversations with a lot of our major supporters that we've had for our meetings and other things. And they all are interested. Up until this point, we really didn't know what we were going to do with sponsorship or exhibits, but we are going to have a virtual exhibit hall. We're reworking our packages just like Danielle did. And we're going to be launching that soon to see who still has an interest. We're hoping that everyone is still interested. You know, reworking the packages is the biggest thing for these sponsors. We have to put something in front of them so that they can make a decision. So we're crossing our fingers and hopeful that we'll still have them when we come time to launch.
Great. Steph?
So ISIF is going through something very similar as Cheryl. Kind of behind the scenes, we're figuring out where our exhibitors and sponsors can fit in our app because they are very curious about what that will actually look like. So we have been working on that. ISIF has kept a little bit less than half of their exhibitors so far. I believe we're still waiting to hear back from about 14 of them. We just notified them a week or two ago. So we're still kind of in the early stages of that process. But we did cut our exhibit rates in half because we understand the nature of meeting.
Okay, so
Hey,
as you,
Heather, if you
yeah.
don't mind, around ISIF, a few points I'll make on sponsors and exhibitors. You know, we expected to keep about half of our sponsors, and so far that's held true, and it's been mostly our higher level sponsors and exhibitors. And, you know, I had a conversation with one of our top level sponsors yesterday, and, you know, they're just as confused by what's going on and what all this means. When we revised our packages and we put some new options in there and put things in there that we thought would be valuable, they were confused on what that meant. What are these things that we're saying they're going to get as part of it? And, you know, it's not a traditional trade show. We can call it that, but they're going to get a profile in the mobile app, and there's a feature where they can have a video call directly with an attendee, and the scavenger hunt means that an attendee has to scan their QR code from each sponsor's profile. But they were just as confused by it. And I took that as we need to communicate more with them and define what the value is of these things that we're offering now. And the approach that we've taken is extending the value outside of the meeting. You know, we're trying to replicate what we do in person and those connections all within that period of the virtual meeting, and we don't have to do that. We need to look at these as long-term relationships and how we partner with these groups and provide additional value outside of the meeting. And one of the things that stuck with me was when we moved this to a virtual event, and in their eyes, the sponsors' eyes, this put us in competition with their other digital advertising budgets. And that's where this got moved to. And that struck me a bit on how we need to view this. What does this change mean to our sponsors and how their budget looks when it goes from, this isn't a virtual trade show, or this isn't an in-person trade show anymore, this isn't a meeting that they're traveling to. What does that mean to their budget in terms of what else, where could they spend this money? If this is going to be defined as digital marketing, are we in competition with that? Do we need to position what we're offering to give them something comparable in terms of where they might put that money for digital or social marketing?
Absolutely. I think it's all about the value proposition. Danielle, I think you wanted to add something.
Yes, so I was talking about more of the planning committee perspective, and I just wanted to share too, we were proactive and reached out to our sponsors and exhibitors. We didn't wait for them to contact us about next steps. We were constantly paying our mailing list, keeping them well informed, and also followed up with personal emails to our sponsors because we wanted them to feel the love and feel like they're still involved and plans were in place, even though we couldn't say from early on exactly what was going to be done. We just kind of kept them informed and that something was coming. So we only lost the one exhibitor, but we're now changing the offerings for who was to be our bag sponsor, what value add can we add to them now that we're in a digital setting. So we're actually planning to make them our closed captioning sponsors for anyone who English is not their first language. They can follow along with all the live broadcasts. So we're taking what was originally done and kind of spinning it now for the virtual setting.
Derrick?
Yeah, so I'll just jump in here. There's one thing that comes to mind, and in this digital environment, we think of, we're again applying the live event in a digital world, but really in a digital world, the time and exposure to our partners and sponsors is almost endless. The time that their brand remains in front of people is far surpasses what it would in a face-to-face environment. So as we're looking to extend offers and renegotiate contracts with our partners in the future, that is something to consider. It's the longevity and substance that they're able to then bring to the end user. There's a lot of opportunity out there to monetize the digital world. And a lot of people, I've seen a lot of groups out there being very creative, leveraging augmented reality with virtual exhibit halls and bringing their swag online and online stores and things of that nature. So the opportunities are there. And it's very, very, very important in this time that we leverage our creativity.
Absolutely. And I think along with the creativity on monetizing and providing value to our sponsors, we also have to look at it from the side of the registration for our attendees and the value that they want with either if we're charging a fee or if we're not charging a fee. And those are big decisions we have to work through as an association. So I'm going to throw this to Steph first. How did you approach the registration rate as you work through the transition to a virtual event?
So it was very difficult. It required a lot of discussion. We also needed to see what we were going to spend in the end and just have a rough idea of what this will actually cost. So the idea of doing it for free, I don't think ever came up. I know that some groups are able to do that. We wanted to still make a little bit of money if we could. So ISIF has a pre-conference workshop every year, and those rates are between $150 to $350 depending on the type. So we decided to actually make our virtual meeting rates the same rate as that one-day workshop. We thought also by pricing it low, maybe it will attract attendees who wouldn't have been able to come to our in-person meeting to maybe come to future meetings if they enjoy the content and if they enjoy the meeting. So we're still making a profit off of it, but we think that they're reasonable rates and not nearly as high as what it might have been for an in-person meeting.
Yeah, and you know,
go ahead, Joe, sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say specific to ISIF, you know, this part of the consideration was, you know, the meeting plays a big part in the society's budget and in terms of how they're going to end their year. And so that was a consideration. They have healthy reserves. It wasn't a situation where since we did get a favorable way out of our in-person hotel contract, we could have a little bit more flexibility with the rates for the virtual event. And the board's decision to go with the reduced rate was, this is an opportunity to engage more people. This is an opportunity to widen out, which it's a growing field. It's not it's a science that is still growing, and the opportunity to engage people in underserved areas was a consideration, and to give back to the group. So that was part of the consideration as well. Not just cover costs too.
Cheryl, I know you looked at it a little differently with members and non-members for your registration rates.
Yeah, leadership really wanted to make a decision to turn this virtual event into a member benefit. All members, you know, we're struggling. Everyone is struggling with reduced work hours and availability of things. So we didn't want to hit them in the pocketbook where it could hurt some people. We have a lot of trainees that come and residents are being affected. So the decision was made to allow our members to access the virtual platform, virtual meeting, complimentary as a member benefit. And then non-members, we're going to charge them a portion of what a membership fee would be, and with the option that they can take that dollar amount and apply it to a first-year membership. So it's like a discounted rate. It was important, you know, we thought that we could also reach a lot of people that we wouldn't normally have at our in-person meeting. So we wanted to make it attractive to them to want and sit for an hour or two and look at the content.
Absolutely. And I know, Danielle, with your registration rate, it's tied to receiving a membership. So you couldn't give it away for free, for sure.
No, they did have the conversation about it and kept the board of directors of the International Association in the loop. And they actually were the ones that were telling us that they were okay with numbers being slashed even deeper, with dues revenue being discounted. So what our planning committee did when we were reworking our budget, we started with presenters first. Let's use that as our starting point for registrants and hope that all of our presenters still plan to participate. We then cut that number in half. And then we even took it even lower than that and only planned for a handful of participants where our registration revenue needed to be and our dues revenue needed to come in at to make up for our expenses. So it was a numbers game. We definitely played around with the figures a lot, but then we ultimately got to a price point and a registration amount that all parties felt comfortable with. So that is what we're shooting for.
Absolutely. So Derrick, again, I'm going to lob it back over to you and what you're seeing as you've guided folks through the registration fee process and value.
Yeah, so the registration process is actually an interesting one because on the digital side, we have the opportunity to leverage unique questions that directly relate and correlate to what our partners and sponsors may want to ask people. And within the registration process, we can instantly create a pool of identifiable attendees that directly correlate to maybe a service of our partners or a need for a resource. And so in that regard, we have the opportunity to leverage the registration process in a unique way. As it relates to the pricing of it, again, I think it ultimately everything directs back to the strategy of the organization and what it wants to achieve within the digital space. Are you trying to grow your membership? Are you trying to increase your exposure for specific initiatives? Are you pushing content out to a wider audience? Are you just trying to bring your leaders together? It's supposed to be a networking event. All those things relate back to ultimately the strategy of the event and then directly correlate to the pricing structure. If you want to bring as many people in as possible and ensure that you are pushing this message out to the world, then of course you want your registration fee to be free. If you are attempting to bring together key stakeholders to facilitate a virtual conference of some capacity, of course you want some elements to be exclusive and to provide your audience opportunities to participate on some level to tease them into the full experience. But you also want to price the full experience to a number that is conducive to what your expenses are and your overall monetization strategy is. So it's an interesting question, and I think it all directly relates to what do you want? What is the ultimate goal of your digital environment, and what are you trying to achieve in that space?
Absolutely. So, Joe, I'm going to spin it in a different direction because as COVID-19 started to impact business around the globe, and as representing an international association, what communications did you start to push out through your association at the beginning, in the middle? What were you saying? How did you keep everyone engaged?
Yeah, you know, I think that's probably where we could have done a better job at the beginning of reassuring our stakeholders, our members, our attendees on the direction we were going. We did finally, I think, get that into a rhythm where even if there's no new news, we still need to be communicating. We need to make sure that they understand the direction that we're going to go. And then once we did start to take decisions, to make sure that we're getting that in front of everyone and how that impacts them. And that's been the key part. And, you know, to be empathetic, to understand that this is a different world. People are facing some different things that they've never seen before. And it meant being communicative. It meant listening to our stakeholders and what they're going through. And that touched on everything from how we're going to deliver the content. You know, it's an international meeting. And are we going to keep the same schedule we have because we're on the East Coast of the US this year, knowing that that's going to be problematic for other people. You know, so staying in communication, that was the biggest piece. and then listening as well. Like I said earlier, we did a survey to try and get some feedback from members, and I think that was important. I let them know that they had a voice in what we were doing, and that was a big piece of it.
Any of the meeting managers want to chime in on communications that you pushed out?
So us too, just like Joe, we surveyed the membership. We even surveyed the sponsors, the exhibitors, just because we wanted to know this conference was as much their conference as the planning committee's conference. So we wanted to provide offerings that would satisfy what our attendees were looking for. So we sent frequent updates to our mailing list. We kept those updates. We started a chain on our website. So basically anything that went out, you could find it in your email, you could find it on the website. But early on too, we also encouraged our chairs to write a few letters for us just to add that personal spin on the messaging, because this was a new experience for all of us. We haven't really dealt with this before. So we wanted to really add that personal contact in and really just reinforce and unite that message that we're all in this together and we're working together to pull this virtual meeting.
Yeah, I'll chime in here. I think one important thing that everyone has just touched on that's very important to pull out is the humanistic piece of all of this. Even though we are in this digital world and we're behind screens and we're social distancing, one thing that this COVID-19 has done is it's made us take people from being attendees, from being partners, to actually being people. And asking the people what is relevant to them and what this means in their world. And I think moving forward, as we look to the content that we're giving people, the content needs to directly help them in their roles and their responsibilities. And the more that we ask the questions of what benefits you and what we can do to help support you, I think those groups then come out on top in the end.
Absolutely. So I'm going to lob this over to Cheryl right now. Engagement, that's the big thing with face-to-face meetings. That's the magic. That's where people interact. That's where they connect. How are you pulling that together for your virtual event?
You know, we're trying to be very systematic in how we do this. I mean, we're realizing a lot of our members and our attendees have got limited time, from extra responsibility at work to homeschooling to living and working in the same space. So we're trying to make sure that we're delivering the material in a time where they feel that they can afford to sit there for a half an hour or an hour or something like that. I mean, everyone's really stretched for time. So we're trying to be very mindful of that and making sure that things aren't too long. And we're tossing the idea around of releasing our content on a staggered basis. So not just putting everything out there all at once. One week do something and then maybe do a live Q&A and then release something else and then do a live Q&A, spanning it out over the course of a couple of weeks, but not making that it's tired. So we're still trying to work through all of that, but we're keeping in mind that everyone is really stretched for time and trying to make sure that we're not wasting anyone's time with the release of our content, that they really want to sit and watch it and be interested in it. And it's beneficial to them and to what they're going through and treating patients and, you know, their everyday life.
Sapp, what have you done for the networking aspect of ISEF?
So we invested in a news feed that will live in our website and our app. So anyone that does a hashtag, our hashtag, will push to that news feed, so they can upload photos. They can just post. It's almost like a Twitter feed. So we think that will help keep people engaged prior, during, and after the actual virtual event. We also will be doing live panels, and they'll actually run simultaneously. So we thought that might keep some engagement As well as that, we are going to be doing some live Q&A. So the talks might be pre-recorded, but they'll be streamed live, and then we'll have our moderators there as well as our speakers available to answer any questions. Now, the challenges with that, of course, are that we're international and it could be anytime, anywhere for these speakers. So we're trying to make sure that our program just recognizes that and aligns with the time zones and all that. We also are doing a Q&A module that we think will be really helpful for our speakers and moderators within the website now.
Great. And I know, Danielle, you're incorporating an app in order to facilitate some of that.
We are. So we are encouraging all of our presenters to upload their headshot, upload their bio. Just like Steph, we're going to have a social media live stream as part of our mobile app. They're going to use the hashtag. We have an individual one-on-one chat feature that they'll be using. They'll actually be able to, for the pre-recorded sessions, they'll be able to submit questions and actually vote for other attendees questions that they think are really great questions that need to be addressed by the presenter. But another element that we're adding on as part of our registration process, we're doing mentor sessions. So we're taking key volunteers from planning committee, advisory committee, board of directors, and taking volunteers from either early career researchers or different registration types, and bringing these people together through either Zoom, Skype, GoToMeetings, just so these smaller working groups can connect with one another, talk about the presentations. And then we're also encouraging as well our presenters to add a slide at the end of their pre-recorded slide deck of times and dates they're available to connect with somebody. Ours too, just like Steph, are international attendees, so it could be at any time, but we're really encouraging the attendees and the presenters to engage amongst themselves and organize these smaller conversations and turn on their cameras, connect via Zoom or Skype, and meet other attendees face to face.
Do you have anything to chime in on that type of strategy? We all know, and we're both in the same professional association, and networking's so huge to get to know one another. So how can we meet through a screen?
Yeah, the one thing that I will add to all of that is in this world, we all know that there are distractions. We have mobile devices next to us. And how many times have we sat in meetings, checking emails, or not paying attention? In this environment, especially right now, if you're doing virtual events, distractions are at a whole nother level. People have dogs running in the background, kids screaming next to them. And so to be able to get someone's attention, not just to get them to sign into the platform, but to actually have their full attention is going to be a premium. And so the content has to be spot on relevant to everything that they need so that they fully immerse themselves in the environment that you create. I keep saying this, it goes back again to the whole digital strategy, but that becomes so vital in the success of everyone's events moving forward.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Cheryl, I'm going to lob this one to you as a self-accredited association. Have you seen any regulation changes with going virtual at this point that you've had to adhere to during this process?
No, actually, that was one of the first questions I asked. We have a CME consultant that we work with to make sure that we're following all the rules and regulations. And that was the first thing I asked her, how do we need to adjust from an in-person to a virtual? And she said, really, it's basically the same. We do have to follow, the same review and things like that, but it's really an easy transition from live to virtual. There's really no difference.
Absolutely. And I'm going to lob this to Danielle only because I know you're doing the live and the recorded. But how did you work through the determination of the length of hours each day that you were going to offer for live, and then how many days the virtual meeting would be?
Well, this was a lot of tests, like from our own sitting in on webinars, like what is that point in which, like how Derrick mentioned, you start checking your email, you kind of put your screen up and start working on a Word document instead of paying attention. So we also asked our planning committee to participate on other virtual meetings, give us some feedback, let us know what you like, what you don't like. So we decided that everybody has their limit. And we also looked to our vendor, our AV provider, as the expert there. How long is too long? And they've really encouraged us that like 4 hours max is really the limit on how long you should have somebody just sitting watching a screen. Granted, we'll probably lose some people during that span, but that's why we're going to try to break it up and have a plenary live stream, an awards presentation, because we're still giving out awards to our top ranking abstract submitters. And then we'll close with another plenary and then open up for these mentor face-to-face smaller Zoom conversations. And then all of our pre-recorded concurrent sessions will be pushed out through our app, which is also a web-based tool as well. So people can look on any device. They could be anywhere. They could be outside, they could be inside. But as we all know, they're not venturing too far from their home. But we're really striving to keep all of our live content to even under the 4 hours that was recommended to us.
Great. And I'm going to lob this back over to Cheryl as well. Question came up of, with CME and sponsorship in a virtual setting, how are you keeping them separated to avoid that commercial aspect?
Well, I mean, the platform is easy to do that because you create sessions or rooms. So we're going to have a virtual platform, and we're going to have sessions that are abstracts, and we have non-CME sessions, and we have our exhibit hall. So the separation is easy, I think. I mean, you know, we're going to learn as we go along, and we're going to talk with our CME consultant to make sure that we're doing everything appropriately. But we're actually even thinking about letting sponsors linking to an external site. We have sponsors who want to have their own content, and we don't control it. So we're going to link to it, and either a message that says that we've got no control, this is not our programming. We're going to do what we can to keep it separate. And I think for the exhibits portion, it's going to be easy because it's not, you know, it's like being in two different rooms. You know, you're going from an educational session into your commercial session. So I believe it's going to be easy. We'll see.
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Right.
We had a question come in about attendance at events. Do we expect attendance to increase or to decrease? And I have my thoughts on it, but I'm going to lob this one over to Derrick.
Yeah, so I'm going to even back up a little bit more on registration. We all like to register for everything that comes through our inbox, especially if it's free. And so I think for those free sessions, you'll see an increase in your registration by far. When it comes to attendance, people actually signing on, again, I think you'll see likely an increase in your registration and attendance in your session. However, if the session is not engaging, what you will see is people leaving, just more so than what they would do in an actual meeting room. It's easier for me to click this X in the top of the screen versus getting up out of my seat and leaving a room. So again, as you think of the content and how you're engaging with the attendee throughout the entire experience, you want to make sure that you keep them engaged throughout the whole process, or you'll lose the increased numbers that you then gained by having a digital environment.
Great, thank you. I'm going to lob this out to anyone that wants to answer this question, but let's go back to the virtual exhibit hall and how you're offering that to your attendees. What's the software that you're using for it, and how are you putting on that virtual exhibition? Cheryl, I saw you go off mute, so I'm going to throw it to you first.
Yeah, so we're making our virtual exhibit booth as part of our sponsorship package. In our live meetings, some levels automatically get a specific size booth. So we're kind of translating that for the virtual program, and we're going to allow them to upload PDFs. And we have a committee who's going to have to approve all of this, but we may allow them to link to an external site, put up a logo, have PDFs. so that they can communicate and where they can have attendees go and see, because when when you're in a live hall, you can touch and feel papers and talk to people, and it's going to be hard in this virtual setting. So we're going to allow our sponsors to do things like posting links and posting PDFs of information, and hopefully, the attendees that are there will engage with them because they'll have contact information there so that they can reach out to them individually.
Fantastic. Steph?
ISIF is doing something very similar. They're also doing like a product showcase where they'll be able to feature specific products from their company. And then there will be, of course, the company profiles. Something we did include in our exhibitor package was for each exhibitor and sponsor to upload an e-poster. So that is something a little different from usual. And we also are including some push notifications within the app and website. So we think that'll be a great way to get exhibitor and sponsor info out to all the attendees.
Great. And Danielle, do you want to chime in on that with what you're doing?
Yes, so we've been sitting in on demos with a wide range of vendors, anywhere from like gamifications where you actually enter the exhibit hall, you see all of the different booths and you walk up to the booth of your choosing. For my client that is meeting in June, we're just doing a virtual like floor plan. So they'll be able to see all of the exhibitors laid out, but once you click on that, it's gonna pop up with the logo, contact information. Just think in a face-to-face exhibit hall, it would rely on somebody coming to your booth and you handing them a business card. In this setting, your contact information is going to be posted for 90 days live all around the world. So we're doing that. There's going to be videos, product showcase as well, like Steph is doing, and also the scavenger hunt. So even though we're not going the gamification realm with this one, there's still going to be a wide range of content all pushed through our mobile app and platform.
Yeah, just to chime in with what Danielle was saying, the gamification piece is going to be big, I think, in this space, especially when it comes to tracking levels of engagement with our attendees. Everyone wants to know, okay, are people actually paying attention? Are people actually going to want to experience these various digital elements? And so one way of doing that is actually to encourage them through gamification, gamifying the experience, the digital experience, by visiting X link, by finding these Easter eggs online, and by attending these sessions and pulling out certain keywords, et cetera, hiding them within the presentation, things like that. There's a lot of different experiences you can create. And again, I'm really, really excited about this opportunity because we'll see that digital is going to be kind of that twin to face-to-face moving forward.
Great. We really have time for one more question before we go to closing thoughts. So I know we're all working on things beyond summer of 2020. We have fall meetings, we have spring meetings. How are you working through some of that process of, do we have this? How are we consulting? How are we working through these decision-making points? I know I'm going to throw it out to Danielle, who's working through not just a September meeting, she also has a spring meeting. So I'm going to have you start with that, Danielle.
Sure. So this is the question that's on everybody's mind. We are literally having this conversation with every single one of our clients. Even a meeting that's taking place in March of 2021, it's on our agendas now. It's being discussed at their board meetings. Our clients are becoming really well versed in their hotel cancellation policies. We want to know the dates and times when major decisions need to be made. And it actually works out quite well for our March 2021 meeting that their abstract submission falls in line with the cancellation policies. So we're going to put together a timeline of, by December, we need to look at this. By this date, we need to focus on that. And this client is in hematology, so a lot of their participants and doctors are advising that it could potentially come back around in the fall. So if it does happen in the fall, what's spring of 2021 going to look like? So we're really using this as a learning experience and just having open conversations and a plan in place.
Steph?
Yeah, I handle another group. Their meeting is in October in Nevada. And we're just starting to go through all the motions, kind of realizing that it's likely going to be difficult to hold an in-person meeting. So we've been gathering, just like Danielle said, contract cancellations, what that looks like, what we would owe the hotel. But then, you know, comes in where will we even be, will be even legal to have a meeting in that state at that time over a certain amount of people. So that's kind of the discussion that we're having right now, and it is changing week by week. And I think that's just the nature of it. I mean, I would say if by midsummer things haven't changed, then, you know, maybe we need to go all virtual, but there still could be hope. But I would suggest starting to talk about virtual now.
Great. Danielle, you want to chime in on the vendors?
Yes. So another point too, not just having these future conversations with our clients, but we're actually our AV team that we're engaging. We're having the conversation. What is the pricing going to be for the live meeting? What is live versus hybrid combination going to look like? And then ultimately also, what's our virtual plan? So we're having these conversations right up front so we can quickly and efficiently put steps into action.
Yeah, you know, I'll say for future meetings, you know, that's top of mind for ISIP too. We originally thought about pushing this meeting back. We also thought about having a second meeting. Well, we've had a second meeting this past year, and we were talking about, are we going to do it again? And, you know, it's a discussion that I think is going to get more complicated as we look at the impact in specific areas. I think we're all seeing that this is a 50-state strategy in the US, and within that, it's a county by county strategy on how it's going to reopen, how certain events can happen in certain areas. So it's going to be, I think, a bit hectic as we go through the year and trying to understand, you know, where is our meeting? How many people is it going to be? For ISIP, our 21 meeting is in May, and it's in France. And, you know, at some point we're going to switch gears to start planning that. But what else can we do this year? It's not just the fact that we've replicated our annual meeting to a virtual meeting. And I think Derrick can jump in on this. Now we're talking about what is our total strategy on digital events. It's going to go farther than just, you know, are we going to do another virtual event? What's the ongoing engagement through this going to look like as things change and as there's more uncertainty through the rest of the year and early 21?
Yeah, because face-to-face events aren't going anywhere, and large-scale events will return. But in tandem, you're going to have people who don't want to travel. You're going to have people who feel more comfortable in a digital environment. There are layoffs that are happening everywhere. Associations are going to enter this, and corporations and groups are going to enter this environment that's completely different than the one that we left months ago. And so as we look forward, it's very important to understand that the environment in which the professional world in which we are going to step out into will be an evolved one that is encompassing shared value, encompassing of a live experience and a digital experience. And we're going to have to basically take toys out of the toy chest and provide multiple experiences underneath one event umbrella. And that's a different mindset than what we are used to as business event strategists. We're used to planning one type of an event and having people come to it. Now this event that we plan has to have multiple channels into it for multiple levels of engagement in different forms. And so that mindset is a huge shift for everyone, and it's one that we need to rally around very quickly, or organizations will get left behind.
Absolutely. And on that note, I want to say thank you so much for the panel for participating today. I feel like this was a fantastic conversation with our clients that are on the line, our friends in the industry, and those that are seeking information about moving to virtual and digital platforms and events. I know we're all living it. We're all going to be living it if we're not already. So I want to thank everybody, and thank you to everyone that participated with us today. Thank you for joining us, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks so
Thanks,
much.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.